All right, everyone. Today's guest is Michael Huseby of The Investments Lawyers, which is a law firm that specializes in fund formation, and in my opinion, are the best fund formation guys in the game. And I say that as a very satisfied client. They're expert level knowledgeable, fun to work with, lightning fast responsive, and everything you might want in a legal partner if you're trying to raise a fund. And his new book, Fundamentals, Your Friendly Guide to Investment Funds and Syndications, which is all about the art and science of fund formation, is coming out July 15th. And we're here with Michael to talk about, of course, fund formation, but we're also going to talk about, trends in venture capital in the world of private funds, Michael's entrepreneurial journey and advice for people starting a business, law firms, and AI, because it's 2025 and you can't do a podcast without talking about AI, and probably a bunch of other stuff that we'll kind of come up with on the spot as we're doing this podcast. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm excited to do this podcast.
Thanks, man. That was quite the intro. I appreciate that.
Every once in a while, I do prepare for something
that
nice. Comes across. So let me ask you, just to kind of give people the lay of the land, you're running this law firm that focuses on fund formation. How does one become not just a fund formation lawyer, but someone actually running a firm specializing in this specific area of law? What's the backstory?
Yeah, I mean, the backstory is I did the whole BigLaw thing for several years at a couple of different firms called Latham and DLA Piper. And, I enjoyed it. For sure. Like, I don't know, a lot of people on the internet, a lot of lawyers like to, I'm going to behave myself and not say bad words on this podcast. A lot of people like to say mean things about BigLaw. Yes. Sure, it's not like a perfect system, but BigLaw was very good to me. And if I were doing it again, I would. But there are some critiques, some valid critiques, I think, of the model, largely that have to do with things like efficiency and innovation and things of that nature. And so there were a few reasons why I left. But ultimately, I kind of wanted to do my own thing and build my own model up until in the year or so before I left. I had started getting my own clients, mostly off of Twitter. And a little bit of LinkedIn. And so I kind of knew that I could do it to some degree. And then, ultimately just kind of wanted to reinvent the model a little bit or put my own flavor on the model as far as, serving clients in fund formation.
That makes sense. And why fund formation specifically? I mean, did you know that that's what you wanted to do when you started law school, or did you realize that it was an interesting area later on?
I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer because I watched Entourage. And Ari Gold wasn't even a lawyer, but I just thought I don't know, man, that looks kind of fun. So basically entirely unreunreasonable.
Not a horrible model, honestly. If there's anyone that could inspire me to be a lawyer, it'd probably be Ari Gold. Would you mind moving the mic a little further away? By the way, I feel like it's kind of a little bit. That'll probably sound better. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you initially thought you were going to be the reincarnation of Ari Gold working at a CAA or ICM or something down in Century City. But how did you end up realizing that was not the path and fund formation was actually the path?
It turns out that when you're in a law firm, it actually matters who you work with more than anything else, more than the specific work. At least that's been my experience. And I started working at Latham with a guy named Yoni Tuckman. And he was doing fund formation at Latham. And I started working with him, and I liked him, and I liked the practice area. And so I started doing a bit of fund formation that way. I was still doing all sorts of other stuff like tech transactions and M&A and all sorts of other lawyerings. Eventually, though, I quit altogether, and we can go into this if you want to now or later or not at all. But basically, I quit law and moved to South America. And basically just wasn't a lawyer for a year. I was just kind of living.
And why did you do that?
I did that because I learned a year beforehand that I have this disease where I'm going blind. And
Jesus.
Yeah. Not ideal.
Not ideal at all.
Not ideal. And I figured,
not ideal for anyone, but especially not when your job involves reading contracts.
That's true. Although the version of blindness that I have is basically my peripheral vision just goes away like this. So
in front of the
reading
screen, you're okay.
is actually, I should have, I mean, nobody, it's very hard to know for sure, but I suspect I'll be able to read, for a couple decades. I hope. I mean, we'll see, or we won't. But
so you get, how did you find out you had this? What's the disease called, by the way?
it was ridiculous. It's called retinitis pigmentosa.
Retinitis pigmentosa.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you realize that you had it?
I just went into like a lens crafters to get new glasses, and they gave me this test, which is a peripheral vision test. And they were just like, "What are you doing? You're failing this test." And I always remember like kind of how they framed it. They're like, "Why are you missing this?" I'm like, "I don't know. How am I supposed to answer a question like that?" And then eventually they're like, "Oh yeah, like it looks like you have this disease, retinitis pigmentosa." And I was like, okay. It was January 2nd, 2018. And so I don't know. I mean, it was basically like at that point, I was living in downtown LA. And so I was walking everywhere, and I just kind of like, basically I was like a 5-minute walk. It was right by like LA Live, if you know what that is. And I walked back home, and it's like a 5-minute walk, and I basically cried the whole way home. And
I bet.
And I like called my parents, and I'm like, "I'm going blind." But I mean, after that day, I haven't cried about it because, like, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, right. I don't know.
And it's, what is it? Genetic? Like, what is the cause?
Dude, it's so bizarre. It's genetic. But nobody in my family, as far back as anybody knows, has it. I mean, it's, wow. Well, I guess you're a man of science, it's recessive. So what the little R's mean. But somehow I just got the perfect mix of little R's.
Wow. Jeez, man. And so you get that diagnosis, and you're basically like, time to go to South America, maybe.
I mean, it was
something new.
It took, I'm, for a lawyer, I might be risk tolerant, but I'm still a lawyer. And so it's like, it took like a year for me to plan everything. But yes, ultimately, I technically went on a 3-month leave of absence. But I knew about a week in that it was going to have to be longer than that.
And so was it sort of a kind of one of those, you realize that you have maybe one life, and you might as well enjoy things now rather than delaying the partying in South America type things?
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I don't know if you're like this. You can tell me. I know a lot of people, in the industry, like in the legal industry and the investment industry, like at least have this happen to them, where like, at least for me and a lot of people I know, you kind of just like, at least I, went to high school, I went to college, I went to law school. I like kind of kept my head down. I'm like, next thing, work. And like, I never really took a breath to really think about what I was doing.
You get on the track, and it's very laid out in front of you, and you just go for it.
Exactly.
And they keep you so busy, you don't have a lot of time to think about what you might be doing instead.
Exactly.
Or if you even really like what you're doing. Yeah.
Exactly. So I kind of just got pushed off the train track, like life just kind of was like, screw your plan, Huseby. Like, we're going to do this instead. Jeez,
dude. So you go to South America. I assume you're not practicing law remotely or anything. You're doing something else. And then you're there for a year?
Yeah. I mean, that in itself is kind of a crazy story, I guess. I mean, ultimately, I'll try to do the fastest version I can. I basically, so I went all around, almost every country, down there, except for Venezuela and the 3 to the, east, the little ones. And, ultimately basically settled in Colombia for a while. And that was really nice. But when I was traveling, I basically met this girl when I was in Bolivia. And so then ultimately, like, I was going to live in Colombia for like what I thought was going to be a long time. But this girl lived in Belgium. And so then at the end of that year, I had to move to Belgium. So then I moved to Belgium. and to be with her, and then basically was there for COVID, and then ultimately, like, after, it was probably like 15 months after that, ultimately went home. During that time, I was basically like a writer, like an internet writer, essentially.
Really?
Which wasn't bad. I mean, to your point, like about AI, I'm so glad I didn't keep doing that.
Right, that's gone.
You know.
So you were like ghostwriting, or what were you doing?
It was like marketing stuff. You know, it was like
writing
sales
marketing
pages,
copy for
email sequences, a lot of blog posts, stuff like that.
For other entrepreneurs or for your own stuff?
No, it's like for other businesses, basically.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
It's the sort of stuff that like ChatGPT would just like rip. Like it would be like 90% as good as what I was writing, and it would do it instantly. And so like I have to imagine that industry just got destroyed. But at the time, you know, it wasn't bad. You know, like I made like, you know, like $50,000 like a year doing that, which like when my rent in Colombia was like $400, was a pretty good spread.
Yeah. You're a rich man.
Yeah.
Seriously. So then you're in Belgium, and at what point do you decide time to get back into the law game, but I'm going to start? Or did you go back to BigLaw, or did you just go straight into starting your own firm?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a progression. At one point, I started doing some contract work for a firm, and then I moved back to the US and worked for kind of a smaller firm. And then, like, at that point, like, I thought I wanted to buy a house, so I started listening to real estate podcasts. And then, like, I just like got into. Do you know what Bigger Pockets is?
It's a pod. Yeah, I've heard. I think I maybe have listened to one or two of the episodes.
Yeah, so I like got into that, and then I just decided I want to invest in real estate, and that was ultimately a mixed bag. But through that, I kind of learned. I kind of like reminded myself about investments in general, investment funds and stuff. And so ultimately, that guy Yoni Tuckman, who I mentioned before, I called him up and I was like, hey, can we work together again? And so then he had since moved to DLA Piper. And so then I went there and worked with him for a couple of years after getting back.
So I guess you could have stayed hanging out in Colombia and Belgium perpetually doing internet writing, but decided to get back into the law game. Did you kind of feel that you had done the non-law exploration that you needed to do? And that's why you felt comfortable moving back into it?
Yeah, I think like I like, at least for me, like I think life is kind of interesting when you kind of pendulum between phases, and like you kind of like have like some time in your life like this and some time of your life like this. And like ultimately, like I got a lot out of that year and that 15 months or whatever it was. And it's so interesting, like how slow that period looks in retrospect, just because you like do so much new stuff that it's like, man, you packed like 10 years into a year.
Right. Yeah. It is crazy. I mean, when you're working in a firm, a year goes by like that, but when you're constantly bouncing around between new cities and meeting new people and moving with women to Belgium. Yeah. all sorts of new neurons.
Just one woman to Belgium.
Just one. That's right. Only one. So then you're working with Yoni, who great guy, by the way. I've met him.
He is a great guy.
You decide that it's time to go out on your own. What helped you make that decision? It sounds like you probably could have stayed at DLA or another big law firm indefinitely if you really wanted to. But why go out on your own?
It was three main things. One was I was starting to get clients, and ultimately the math, when you can get your own clients, kind of just,
make way more money.
It's just, I'm like, make more money, work less hours. That sounds like a reasonable trade. I mean, it's scary, like starting your own thing, as you know. That was one piece. The other piece was I wanted to automate stuff a lot, and it's just kind of hard to get through committee in a big law firm.
I'm sure at a legacy firm, yeah.
Like, I want this software. They're like, no. They're like, all right, well, guess I lost that argument. And then the third one is even the partners that I really liked, I never really wanted any of their lives, if that makes sense. It's just like, yeah. I don't know, man, like you're there for a long time and then you become partner, but you're still working like a ton. And like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I work a lot, but it's just, I don't know. It's fun. I'm not sure.
I had basically the exact same revelation when I looked at the people that were 20 years senior to me at the hedge fund I was at. And I was like, I like this guy. I respect him. I don't want to be him.
Yeah. How long were you at a hedge fund?
7 years. The last 4 years were at like a pretty sizable real hedge fund. The first 3 were at a smaller kind of startup hedge fund.
Were you in New York or NSF?
I was in Century City.
Oh, in Century City. What years were you in Century City?
2016 through 2020.
Oh man, look at that. All right, we were neighbors. We didn't even know it.
Probably were. That's right. Well, isn't the Latham buildings in downtown, right? But is DLA in Century City?
They both have both. They both have downtown and Century City.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely preferable to be there than downtown, in my opinion.
Well, I have to agree with you now. At the time, like in 2016, 2017, 2018, like that's when I was living downtown. I really liked it.
It's cool. It's after COVID, it got way too grimy for my tastes, even though I like a little bit of grime. But, it's rough. So a few things about the transition to starting your own firm. And I think this is actually interesting because this applies not just to you and lawyers in general, but also the types of people that you work with as clients with fund formation. When you leave DLA Piper to start your own firm, you go from being a practitioner of the law to a business owner who's running a business. You're also still a practitioner, but you're probably spending a ton of your time, probably more than 50% if I had to guess, on not being a lawyer, but being a business owner and manager and dealing with all the things that entails. And many people that are probably clients of yours, like including myself, worked at maybe a hedge fund or a real estate fund, and they say, hey, I want to, do my own thing. I love being an investor, so I'm going to start my own investment firm. And they quickly realize that starting your own investment firm means you stop being an investor and you start being a business owner, which is actually, even though so many people told me that is what happened, I still didn't really internalize it until it happened.
Yeah.
And I still am like struggling to adopt to be able to do both roles simultaneously. Were there any things, how was that transition for you? Was there anything that was maybe easier than expected or more difficult than expected? And what advice would you have for someone who is making that transition from practitioner, whether it's practitioner of the law as a lawyer or maybe practitioner of the art of investing, but wants to make the transition to law firm owner or fund manager and is about to step into like a more business role?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on like how big the business is when you start it to some degree. So when I started it, it was literally just me. So in many respects, it was kind of just like dipping the toe in the water, and a lot of it could be done and learned over time. But there's all this mundane stuff that you have to do, which is just frustrating and boring and inefficient. Like, I mean, like state tax stuff. It's like one of our employees just moved from Tennessee to Pennsylvania. And now it's like, all right, we got to open up the Pennsylvania state tax account. And like, it's just like, oh man, like, it's just, they send you mail all the time. It's always physical mail. And so I don't know, there's a lot of mundane stuff. I mean, it's certainly easier when you're starting small, for sure.
Sure.
And I would rely on basically software and outsourcing as much as you can. In the legal profession, there's kind of not everybody, but a lot of people use kind of the same types of software. There's something called Clio for practice management that like everybody uses. And, there's kind of like a standard suite of stuff that people use. And that's kind of how it is in other industries as well. And I would suggest, I mean, what I did is I just talked with not an outrageous number, but maybe 3 to 5 people who are solo practitioners or small law firms beforehand and just said, like, what do I do? You know,
Yeah,
what's the tech stack? But ultimately, I think people overestimate the difficulty of starting your own business.
You think they overestimate it?
I think they I think so. Maybe lawyers do. Maybe lawyers do. You know, we are a risk averse people. And I think maybe they think it's harder than it is. I don't know. It's really, and it's not that expensive, at least when you're by
It's
yourself.
certainly not expensive to start up. No, not.
Yeah.
Now, what about the transition? So obviously we talked about how the back office and operational stuff can be very annoying and time consuming. Totally agree. What about the kind of switch to kind of eating what you kill and realizing that you have to just constantly be doing business development or sales or fundraising or whatever it is in your business that leads to money coming in the door? Because when my understanding is that when you work at, you know, a big law firm, it's great if you bring in clients, but you don't necessarily have to. There's always work that can be done.
Yeah.
Now that
nobody expects it.
Right. But now that you run your own firm, you better be bringing people in the door. Otherwise, the firm's not going to last very long. So how was it to figure out that you need to be like wearing that marketing and business development and sales hat all the time? And I guess maybe we can talk about the social media stuff in here as well. But how was that like transition into a full-time BD guy for you?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of emotional roller coaster. You know, I mean, the actual like act of getting the clients actually like was never that much of a problem, or at least generally hasn't been. I didn't want to leave and start my own firm until I was confident in like my ability to at least, you know, put food on the table. Yeah. But you know, the emotional toll it takes is significant. I mean, I'm sure, you know, it's like with you getting investors, you know, it's just like, you know, like you're like Monday, you're like king of the world, and Tuesday you're about to file for bankruptcy, and Wednesday, you know, you're going to buy a private jet. You know, it's just, I mean, that's gotten better over the last 6 months for sure. But like, there's just so much emotional volatility, especially when you hire people. I mean, it's one thing if you're like by yourself. Like, you know, we've been running for like almost a year and a half at this point. And September of last year was the month. Luckily, it's only happened once where like we lost money. And it's just like, oh no, like, what is this? Like, we're going the wrong way here. And, you know, that's just like, ugh, you know, but, you know, it certainly requires, at least at the beginning, it requires like a ton of effort, because now things are changing a bit. But at the beginning, it wasn't like I'm going to do business development 20 hours a week and legal work 20 hours a week. It was like, I got to do business development 20 hours a week and legal 40 hours a week and admin 10 hours a week. And like at the beginning there, you're just like, oh, you're going hard.
Yeah. And let's see, we'll get back to the business development stuff in a minute. There are a few things that I think that your firm does a little bit differently that probably help with the business development, or at least help position you in a way that stands out compared to the competition. So the first one, and this one it might sound silly, but it's very obvious because it shows up right in the name. Your firm is not called Huseby and Associates.
Yeah.
your name, PLLC or something.
Yeah.
It seems like every other law firm is just like the name of the person that started it.
Yeah.
I assume this was a conscious decision on your part to not do that.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it was an accident. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of always knew that at some point I wanted to admit other people in, and I wanted them, when that time came, to feel like the law firm was theirs.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of hard. Like if I join like Brahm and Associates, it's like okay, like
Right. But all the firms that you worked for prior, they were all the names of people that started them or partners. And it seems
that's
like that's
true.
kind of standard, right?
It is. I would say that the legal profession in general, to me, in many ways, makes no sense. Like I don't understand it. Like we're in the process right now of giving all of our lawyers equity in the firm. Everyone.
That's pretty unique. And for people who are not familiar with how law firms work, that's not normal.
It's unusual. It's unusual.
Yes, highly unusual.
And like
you normally wouldn't get any sort of ownership until you made partner. Is that
exactly
right? Yeah,
exactly.
So you're giving everyone, not just partners, but the associates and others.
That's right. Well, it has to be lawyers, unfortunately. I can't give non-lawyers, and I can't. Yeah, it's technically not allowed, which is unfortunate. Like that upsets me as well. And I'm not like giving away like half the firm right now or anything at this point. Sure. It's small for now, but I just think it helps with morale. Like people want to feel like they have ownership, because then you're like. I'm sure you can tell me whether you felt this, but when you're a straight employee and all you get is salary, like work, like it can be like enjoyable in some ways, but it's not a game. And like once you have skin in the game, it's like, this is a game. Like we got to get some points together, like I just want to play the game, get more points. And it's just like a different thing.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, the last hedge fund that I worked at, the one in Century City, it was the guy's name. And there were plenty of good things about working there, but I always felt like no matter how much I advance in this firm or how well I do, I'm still like I'm wearing a jacket with someone else's name on it. It's kind of weird. Yeah. And they also you would get bonuses and everything, but there was no path to ownership in the firm. And for, I think, the type of employee that one might want to have around, those people are usually motivated by ownership and feeling like they're part of something and not just playing for someone else's team. So It's amazing that other law firms don't do that often. And I think it's really cool that you're, in some sense, running your firm, not like a traditional legal firm, but like a startup in a way.
It's like a startup. Yeah.
So the other thing that makes you guys stand out, and this probably helps with business development as well, is that you guys have flat rate billing for most of the services. And I love the line on your website that says, we do not bill for quick email responses, short phone calls, or other minor matters. You shouldn't be afraid to ask your lawyer a question.
Yeah.
First of all, why is that not standard operating procedure in the legal world? And why did you decide to do that? And I'm curious to know kind of how now that you've been operating under this flat fee regime for a year plus, what have you noticed as like the benefits and drawbacks of doing that versus the time and materials billing that's standard?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately it comes down to incentives. And so if we charge X amount for a fund formation, and like we do some hourly stuff. So we do, but it's like 10% of our revenue. Yeah. Almost everything is this flat fee stuff. And like, if you're billing by the hour, your incentive is to spend a lot of time. It's not rocket science. If this takes me longer, I make more money.
and the client is just supposed to accept that you're not screwing them in that way, to be vulgar about it. But it's kind of a strange position to be in as the client. I remember when we were shopping for formation attorneys, we spoke to all of the big names that one might speak to when you're setting up a fund. And pretty much all of them would answer the question, how much does it cost to get a fund set up with, well, somewhere between $50,000 to $150,000. You won't really know till the end of it.
For your fund?
Dude,
that's wild. 150K. Fund 2, it's going to be 140K. We're going to give you a deal.
Seriously. And it's just wild that there could be that much variance and that people are okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm a customer, I want to know what I have to pay. So I don't know. I mean, when you bill by the hour, not only is it uncertain for the client, but you also just you do not have a clear incentive as the firm to become more efficient.
Right.
You don't really care. Whereas if we're this project is $10,000, which is not the price of a fund formation,
No.
But if this costs $10,000, how can we do that as fast and correctly as possible? And so then it's okay, this is a different game now. This isn't a how much time can we spend game.
Optimization.
How can we automate this and simplify as much as possible? And there gets to a point where, you can't simplify too much, or else you're kind of,
sure,
that's not good for the client. But then it's okay, well, we're going to put in we've spent hours, so many hours, maybe 100 hours or more, automating our documents. And it takes a long time because they're really complicated documents. But ultimately, now it's much faster to do things. And that's just not something that you do if you're billing by the hour.
Yeah. And do you find when you're talking to potential clients, is this flat rate billing a big selling point for them? Do people respond well to it?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, we do
I responded well to it.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know. Have you ever had anyone say, well, why can't you just bill me by the hour?
Sometimes, not typically on a normal fund formation. We do have people ask that, and generally we just every once in a while we'll do some billable stuff, but tracking your time isn't a fun thing to do. The sheer time tracking is just, it also kind of warps your mind in a way where you just think people joke about lawyers like this. We're oh, he's thinking in 6-minute increments. You do,
Yeah,
just sure outside of work, it's just it's just your whole brain just gets totally subsumed by counting time, which is it's kind of exhausting.
Fun. And so the other thing that I think is quite interesting that you guys have done is you've been very aggressive on social media. I think that from the time that I first came across your social media profiles and started following you on Twitter and LinkedIn, I don't think you've missed a single day of posting at least once on both of those platforms. And you also seem to have somehow incentivized the other employees at your firm to do the same thing, because I see them constantly posting. And I mean, that's very unique for actually in the investment world. It's still quite unique, even though some firms do it pretty aggressively. But the fact that you guys are actually accessible and active on LinkedIn and Twitter, I think is cool, because it gives prospective clients a way to get to know you before they actually get to know you. Yeah. And I found you through Twitter. So
nice.
I know you've at least got one client through social media.
Just at least one.
At least one. And you guys have there's that whole startup phrase, building in public. And I feel like you guys are kind of doing that. I remember I saw a post probably last year where you bragged about, crossing 1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
And I was that's awesome. That's so cool that we get to see the progress, through the internet. When you were bringing in clients or posting on social media, when you were working in BigLaw, what was the response from the people that you were working with? Were people telling you to stop posting? Did you get any negative comments? What was kind of the traditional law firm attitude on social media?
I would say it was a mix. There were mixed reviews. I'm not going to get, I think, too much more specific into that, just because I don't want to. But I would say some people were into it and some people were not. And I really do think that I was very lucky in that respect, because I know people in similar positions where somebody found out they were posting on Twitter and they're just shut it down. It's done. Yeah. You're done. You leave the firm, or you quit Twitter, or you quit LinkedIn. And it's kind of funny. Somebody once, it may have been, I don't remember who it was. Somebody posted, there's like this chart. They made up a chart, and there's like two lines, and one line is like how much leash you have left at your firm, and that line starts up here. And then like the other line is like how big is your social media presence? And like, the social media presence goes up, like it goes like this, or like the social media presence goes up and the leash goes down. And like it kind of is the case, at least maybe it won't be like this anymore, but in many places it's like, if you can get the social media presence, you got to get it as fast as you can before they shut you down. And like,
right.
Like,
because it gives you options.
Yeah. And so I was lucky that I got pretty far on that graph before leaving.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild that if you think back to like the election of Obama, there were all those headlines about like he was the first social media presidential candidate, right? And then obviously Trump, social media played a huge role in him getting elected. So it's like two different presidents have been elected with the help of social media, but it's still bad for a lawyer to like and same thing in the private funds world. Like people will say, oh, it's, if you're posting, it means that you're unsophisticated and not serious. And it's like, well, I don't know. It seems to be okay for heads of state. So, like, why
who knows how sophisticated they are? Just kidding. No politics on the show.
No politics. So yeah, it's just wild that when, again, the most powerful people in the world, it's acceptable for them to, take advantage of these platforms. It's still in 2025, there's still resistance from like kind of these old school firms. I got in trouble for posting when I worked at the hedge fund, and I did delete some accounts. Yeah. I wasn't even talking about hedge fund stuff. I was just, and not politics either. I was just posting funny things.
Dude, I would
like anyone.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
They did not like having anyone with any sort of presence anywhere.
Yeah. I would stay away from politics on the internet. That's like,
for sure.
That's like,
for sure.
I would say like some people like, I don't know, that's like a cardinal rule, at least like for me and like people at my firm to some extent, it's like, do you really want to like alienate half of the potential clients? Probably not a good idea.
Yeah, for sure. Unless you're doing some sort of very specific self-selection and all your clients happen to fall into one of the.
That could be an interesting strategy.
Yeah. It might work, but you never know. That stuff can whiplash against you. So I would advise to not do it.
Yeah. All right.
So let's talk about maybe the progress. When you started the firm, it was just you. Now you have how many employees?
We have about 8 people. It's kind of like a concentric circle sort of thing where there's like a core of us who are like really full time, and then there's like some kind of part-time people. There's about 8 of us in general.
There you go. And so what does the next year look like in terms of the growth? You've gone from 0 to 8. Is the plan to keep hiring? Is it to grow into different practice areas? Are you going to stay focused on fund formation and SPVs? What's sort of like the next, 12 to 18 month vision?
Yeah. I mean, we're always talking about it. We're always scheming together as a firm. Yeah. What we're doing now is we're basically building out the deal work side. So, I mean, we'll do private equity funds, VC funds, real estate funds, credit funds. And, as you know, like you form a fund and then you have to invest in stuff. And so we're going to make sure we have everything we need to like basically serve our fund clients when they do investments. So we've already
got it.
We've already.
So when you say deal work, you mean like reviewing the Series A documents?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Got it. Yeah. I mean, it's obvious, right? Because like you bring those clients in to form the fund. Why would you let them go to someone else for all the deals that they do?
Yeah.
It's a good plan. And then how are you guys? I said we're going to talk about AI, and you already touched on automation a little bit, but how do you feel about being a law firm in the age of AI? Where have you found that AI is super helpful, and where is it not helpful or not quite up to the task yet?
Yeah. I mean, how do I feel about AI? It's exciting and scary. I mean, like on one hand, like if AI didn't exist and it like pretend like I was like 20 years older and started 20 years ago, like it would just feel like this is like everything's going to work like in 5 years we'll be bigger, and then 10 years we'll be bigger, and like whatever. Like it's just kind of like an easy progression. Now it's like, I don't know, man, like what's gonna happen? I mean, I think, it is happening. So to ignore it is stupid. I will say that, I mean, so a lot of what we do isn't like quote unquote AI. It's more just, if then automation. That is very powerful for us. We do use ChatGPT for some stuff. We use something called GCAI, which is basically it's ostensibly for general counsels, but we went through kind of a process where we tried a bunch of these, like, because the problem is you can't like dump your client documents into ChatGPT. That's like it's
security concerns,
like confidentiality stuff. Like it's a no-no. Yeah. So we're like, we got to dump them somewhere else. And we actually, this isn't like a normative statement. Just based on our practice, we don't really dump client documents into language models that much in any case, because like for us, there's just not really like a need to. For other practice areas like M&A, you might want to you might do that more. Or like if you have a bunch of diligence or litigation, you have a bunch of documents or something. But we found that this one called GCAI was good and simple. A lot of these legal tech companies, it's just like you got to get on the phone with them, and then they got to give you a demo, and then they're like, here's our proposal, and our proposal is like all this stuff you didn't want, and the whole thing is like $17,000 a month, and we're just like, what is this? Like, it's just a total mess. GCAI is great. Like, you don't have to talk to anybody. You push the button, you buy it, you pay for it, it works. Highly recommend it. In our line of work, it's kind of like an esoteric line of work. It's very niche, and ChatGPT is just wrong all the time.
Sure.
So it's kind of tricky. Like I had we're doing a few what are called parallel funds right now. And basically it's like you have too many investors, so you're going to blow the 100 investor cap. So you make another fund where only like really, really rich people called qualified purchasers can go. And it basically means you can have more than 100 investors. And so we're doing that for a couple of clients right now. And like, I wanted to get to the bottom of a very specific regulatory question that has to do with creating what's called an aggregator beneath these two things. Really, and there goes half the listeners. But basically, like, I tried to figure it out in ChatGPT, and it just kept giving me wrong answer. I'm like, but what about this? And they're like, oh yes, you're totally right. And here's the answer. I'm like, but what about this? It's like, oh yes, you're totally right. And it's just like, if you don't know what you're doing, like, you're gonna take the first answer and just assume that it's right.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of almost, in some cases, it's almost not helpful.
Yeah, I remember when we were going back and forth with the docs for my fund with you, I would dump them into ChatGPT just for fun to see what it would say. And so I think the first time you sent back, the rough draft of the docs, I just threw them in there and I was like, hey, can you summarize the terms of this fund for me?
Yeah.
And it was like, blah, 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 American waterfall, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and I went to look in the docs. I was like, I know it doesn't say that, but let me just double check. And of course it didn't say that. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's European waterfall. And it's like, oh, you're totally right. So again, like, unless you were paying attention or knew what the difference between those two things were, you could get totally screwed. I will tell you, I think I forgot to tell you this. You'll find this funny. When we got the final draft of the docs, I put it in to ChatGPT and I said, can you rate the quality of these docs on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being like the most expensive white shoe law firm out there, right? And it said, these docs are a 9.5 out of 10. They have all these amazing qualities about them. And I said, well, what is the difference between this and what a super expensive white shoe law firm would provide? And it said, well, the investments lawyers is not a white shoe law firm. It has the name of a
Oh,
white shoe law
dagger
firm.
to the heart.
And I was like, so
Dagger
the only difference is the name of the firm. It didn't even give me any suggestions to make the docs better. It was like, just change the name to Cravath or something.
Oh my goodness. We are gonna our new name is Cravath and Huseby. And we're gonna trick the models.
Yeah, I love that. That's so funny. So okay, let's get into some of the nuances or some actual fund mechanic stuff, or maybe not mechanics, but from where you sit forming funds for people, I feel like you have the most interesting view into what's happening in the market because you get to see funds before they're even formed. So are there any interesting trends or things that you're noticing currently, whether, I know you work with like lots of different asset classes. So whether it's across real estate or venture capital or whatever, what are you noticing? Is the market still kind of in that post-COVID ice age, or do you feel like things are starting to loosen up? Are there any interesting like areas that are getting particularly hot right now?
Yeah. I mean, as far as the areas, I mean, VC is picking up, but is still pretty tough. At least that's been my experience. And like we've been doing a lot of VC funds and a lot of them are raising less than what they want to do at the beginning. And, as you know, the fundraising periods are, for a year or two. So you can keep going. VC's been tough though. Everybody loves private credit. Everyone's stoked. There's just like so much private credit going on. A lot of it. Real estate's been pretty good. Private equity, like SMB stuff, like we're going to buy a bunch of like lawn mowing companies, people like that stuff right now.
Really, that's still hot. I thought that was maybe past the peak, but that's interesting.
We see a decent amount of interest
a lot of it?
in that. Yeah.
Like SMB roll up type.
Exactly. One thing people have been wanting to do recently, and sometimes it's a bad idea, is like evergreen funds.
Yeah, I noticed that in your book, saying that the perpetual funds are kind of getting hotter and hotter.
Yeah,
and I've seen a few people on Twitter talk about those. So maybe you could explain what that is and how that's different from the standard like 10-year VC fund.
Yeah. So I mean, in lots of types of funds like VC and private equity, and usually real estate, the fund lasts, let's say 10 years. And so you buy a bunch of stuff, you monitor it, you improve it, and then you sell it at the end. The other option is, what you dealt with at the hedge fund, which is actually the fund lasts forever and investors come in and after a lockup period, they can get out. And so they can withdraw their money and the fund doesn't actually shut down. Investors just kind of come in and come out over time. But somebody planted the seed that like people want permanent capital, and there's like 14 different firms called permanent capital, permanent equity, it's like enduring, it's all these words that are like just synonyms.
Yeah.
And they basically just want the money forever, which makes sense, of course.
Right.
The problem is, you can't just have like a VC closed end style fund, but it lasts for 40 years because like at some point investors want their money back.
Right. Yeah.
And so the fix there, which is what, hedge funds do, is like we said, they have usually you can withdraw your money, usually subject to a lockup period, which is like you can't withdraw your money for a year or 2 years or whatever. And then something called a gate, which is like, okay, you can withdraw your money, but you can't withdraw your money at once. You can do it like over 4 quarters or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. With a hedge fund, that's fine because in a hedge fund, you're buying like public securities or options or treasuries or whatever that are super like deep in liquid markets.
Right.
But like if you were going to like make a bunch of VC investments and now investors want to withdraw, I was like, what are you going to do with those? Like you can't just like sell them on the NASDAQ.
You can't really dump them at all. Yeah. It's interesting.
And it's hard to value them too. And that's an important part of how compensation works and how withdrawals work in open-ended funds. So, people need to be very careful if they want to do open-ended funds in illiquid asset classes like real estate or private equity. We have not done an open-ended venture fund. It's just so hard. Like, how do you value it, and how do you honor redemptions? You would just need so much excess cash.
If someone comes to you and they say, "Hey, I heard on this podcast that permanent capital is where it's at, and I want to start the 16th permanent capital laundromat roll-up fund."
Yeah.
Do you advise them against it and to try to steer them towards another structure, or do you say do it but with these caveats?
I am open to the idea. Just like full disclosure, like I am a GP in an open-ended real estate fund.
Okay.
So that kind of shows you what I think about that. But the trick there, ours buys single family houses. So the valuation is not rocket science. It might not be like valuing. You never know exactly how much a house is worth, but you're not going to be off by 10% either way.
Right. Easier to value a house than illiquid business or something.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah.
And then the thing to do if you do have an open-ended fund with illiquid investments is you just have to have terms where you can manage liquidity very carefully.
Right.
So in our fund, the lockup period isn't a year, it's 5 years. And the gate is you can withdraw your money 15% a year. So it's like over 7 years. So there's not going to be a situation where it's like, we have to sell a quarter of the houses.
That makes sense. So, okay, that's good advice for anyone thinking about starting a permanent capital vehicle. Let me ask you another question for people that are maybe starting out in the fund manager world.
Yeah.
You talked about the difficulty of raising capital in today's environment. What are the backgrounds or attributes of the people that you see successfully raising capital as emerging managers now? I imagine you deal with a lot of emerging manager clients because you're a smaller firm, and so you're going to attract a lot of people that are kind of newer to this whole entire industry. Who are what do the people that successfully close their funds actually look like?
So there's various things. One is a very common way to successfully raise money for a fund is to have successfully raised money for SPVs. And that's true in any asset class, whether that be like a venture style in SPV or like an independent sponsor thing in private equity or a syndication for a real estate fund. It's sometimes easier to raise money for those because the investors are like, look, it's, SpaceX. I know what a SpaceX is. Like, I'll invest in that. And it's not like a trust me sort of thing. So you can build trust with investors by doing that. So that's one piece. The other piece is, you generally have to pass the hat around your friends and family for the first fund. And like that's what we did in the fund that I'm in. I'm in it, my dad's in it, my friend from elementary school is in it, my friend from college is in it. It's like, and those are small checks at the beginning. But you have to have some sort of critical mass to start making investments. Some people raise money on social media. That can be very powerful. But it doesn't work for everybody.
You got to be good at social media.
You got to be good at social media. We raised money. I'm not like super like public about the fund that I'm a part of, but
you're public enough that I know the name of it. Scholastic.
Oh, okay, you do.
You know
okay,
the name of it. Okay, I've seen you've posted a few times. For sure. But
I maybe like 5 times. And Sean, the real GP, posts about it all the time. And so he's been able to get a lot of investors that way. I do think that it's, at least on Twitter, I think it's harder than it was before to raise money on social media.
That may just be a function of the market overall being
it could be
tougher though.
It could be.
Maybe it's not just social media.
It could be. could be.
But so that kind of leads into the next natural question, which is this 506B versus 506C question.
Yeah.
Because of course, in order to actually be able to publicly solicit or talk about your fund, you need to register under the 506C exemption, which you could probably explain better than I can. So maybe you could explain that distinction. And then maybe the more interesting question is, what percentage of funds that you're forming choose C versus B?
Yep. So basically, there's two flavors of how we raise private funds under the Securities Act, which is one of the laws that you have to think about. And so there's 506B, which is basically quote unquote private placement. You can only raise money from people you know, essentially. And so there's all sorts of like, back of the napkin rules here where it's like, well, like, can I introduce my brother-in-law to Brahm? It's like, yes, but like they have to like hang out first. And then like on the third date, Brahm can, it's like this whole
the
like,
one beer rule.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the 3 beer rule. Yeah. So that's one option. And practically you want everybody to be an accredited investor in a 506B raise. Technically, and this is something like, warning light, siren, like lawyers not always, many lawyers don't know what I'm about to say. And like it gets their clients into trouble. If you admit even one non-accredited investor into a 506B raise, your disclosure obligations balloon. And you have to like pay lawyers a lot more money and do a lot more work than if you keep it to all accredited investors. So yes, technically you can have up to 35 non-accredited investors in a 506B, but at this current firm, at the Investments Lawyers, we've successfully convinced everybody not to do that. And once at DLA, we failed at convincing a client to do that. So like we really like wag our finger until they give up that idea.
So whether you pick B or C, no accredited investors in the fund.
Only accredited investors.
Sorry. Yeah.
Only
accredited investors.
Yeah.
Even if you pick B, where you're technically allowed to have a few.
That's right. And so the benefit of 506B, which I call 506B quiet, is that to learn whether somebody is accredited, you just have them check a box. They're like, I'm accredited. And as long as it's not like, Brahm, I'm accredited, but I'm not.
Wink.
Like then you're good. Like if you know that they're lying, then that's no good. But in general, you can generally trust what they say. The other version is this 506C thing, and with that you can talk wherever you want. The medium of communication is generally allowed, whatever it is. The downside is you have to have some sort of third-party verification that each investor is accredited. And so the normal way to do that, or the normal ways to do that, would be, number one, you basically have their CPA sign a letter, and they're like, yes, this investor's accredited. And then you're happy. That's free. We include a letter like that in our subscription documents. Or there's online services called they're all kind of have the same name. It's like Invest Ready, Verify, Invest, Verify, Ready. There's all like the same names. And they'll do it for you. I don't know what the price is right now. Last time I checked, it was like $50 or $60 or something to verify a particular investor. And so that's the normal way of doing it. About a month or 2 months, I don't know what it is now, maybe 2 months ago, there was what's called a no action letter. And a no action letter is not a law. It's like Brahm wants to do something. And so I write the SEC and I'm like, hey, SEC, Mr. Gensler, can Brahm do this thing? And then the SEC might say thumbs up, thumbs down. And technically that only applies to you, Brahm. Like nobody else technically, like it's just for Brahm. But in practice, if the SEC basically says they won't enforce something against you, practitioners generally are like, okay, we can do that now.
Yeah.
And so there was one of these no action letters where it was a fund and their minimum investment size for humans was 200K and for entities was $1 million. And they're like, come on, SEC. you know these guys are
Right.
accredited.
If you're writing a $20,000
Yeah.
check, you're probably
like
accredited.
you're accredited.
Right?
You're accredited.
Or you're really stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the SEC was like, fine, you got us. You can say that they're accredited. And so now basically, and so that means accredited without having to verify. So you can use 506C. So basically our clients, many clients who are raising, larger style vehicles now, you'll see all of a sudden the minimum investment size is 200K for individuals and $1 million for entities. And so if your fund is large enough to support minimums like that, then now you can speak publicly without doing the kind of friction of the check.
Yeah. Which I will say, as someone who raised from 67 LPs under 506C for the last fund, no one ever walked away because of the check.
That's right. You'll have maybe
so people
you have a couple complainers.
Maybe a few will, but there were a few that complained and then they did it anyway. So So let me ask you then, and for some additional context, 506C is relatively new. I think it was 2013 or something that it.
A little over 10 years ago.
So how have you noticed the adoption? Like what percentage of new funds that are being started today are choosing C over B?
My sample size is skewed. So I don't know what like the overall section is.
Of your clients.
Of my clients, it's like 50-50 probably.
50-50.
Something like that. I mean, that is probably like the highest 506C ratio out of any law firm in the world. You know what I mean? Like it would,
and that's because you're dealing with more emerging managers, you suspect?
Well, it's, a lot of these people like found me on the internet.
Right.
And
so internet
they themselves like have followings on the internet. And so, and I will say, like, we're pretty, if someone's on the fence, we kind of poke them until they do 506C. Yeah. And the reason is, like, what is the likelihood of you getting in trouble if you do 506B, the be quiet one, and you like throw up a LinkedIn post talking about it? Like, what's the likelihood of enforcement? I don't know. Probably pretty low. But like, why? Why take the risk? Yeah. Like, if you think you want to talk to people you don't know, just like cut this risk off. You don't need this risk. There's other risks in life. You don't need this one. It's not that hard to verify.
And I will say that you can look up on the SEC's website filings that other big funds have made for their new funds. And I looked up before this podcast some of Andreessen's recent filings, and they use 506C. Which makes sense because Mark is constantly on Twitter and on podcasts and stuff, right? And so even though he's not saying, please come invest in the Andreessen Horowitz Fund 7, he's still insinuating that they're a venture capital fund and that you can invest in them.
Yeah.
So if it's good enough for them, I mean, if they can get away with it, I don't know why some, smaller, newer manager wouldn't think that they could do it.
Yeah. Well, I think people get scared reasonably. So, I mean, like, I get it when like I'm trying to sign up clients, like you get it when you're trying to sign up investors. Like you want to minimize the friction, minimize the things they have to do. Just like push the button once and we're good. You know what I mean? Like, and so now it's like, actually also get somebody to sign this letter. It's like, oh, I don't want to get them to do that. But if they say no, and they rarely say no, as you kind of alluded to, I'm not sure we've ever actually not had somebody invest, but there's certainly some grumbling sometimes.
100%. So I know we're coming up on time, but do you have another 15 minutes or so?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So let me ask you this. In the book, one of the things that I love is that you have these sections where you talk about some of the big fumbles that people make.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite big oopsies or fumbles that people trying to form funds make, and how can they be best avoided?
I don't know if I have favorite ones, but I mean, my favorite ones.
How about this? Most common mistakes that you see people making.
I mean, this is shamelessly self-serving, but like
that's okay.
The most common, maybe not the most common, but a common one is like you have, and this happened literally today. Like we get on a call with a potential client and they're like, we hired somebody to form this type of fund for us. And it was just wrong. Like, it's not what they needed. Like, it was, I won't get into the specifics, but it's basically like they thought they were getting one thing, they got something entirely different. Like we've had people come to us asking to fix their fund because their lawyer forgot to put the waterfall in. We've had people where the lawyer forgot to, like, how like the first like LPA of the fund is like a 2-pager, and then it's called an initial agreement. And then at the initial closing of the fund, you do the amended or stated, which is like the 100-page thing. Like they never did the 100-page thing. They just kept the small one. Like, there's all sorts of just like bizarre stuff.
Now, does this happen because people will hire maybe their corporate lawyer or a lawyer who is competent in some area other than fund formation that client just happens to know and said, hey, can you do a fund for me? And the lawyer's like, sure, I guess. How hard could it be?
Yeah, that's right.
And is that where this comes from?
Exactly. And like, that's, if I did, I used to do M&A, but like at this point, like if I was in charge of an M&A deal, that would not be good. Like if I were doing a divorce, that would not be good. You don't want that.
So lesson number 1, if you're going to form a fund, go to a fund formation lawyer.
I would say so. I mean, that's true with anything, any lawyer or doctor or, anything.
So what's another common mess up that people make?
Another common one is like VC specific, like VC, like your men and women in Washington, D.C. did a good job lobbying for you. Because like VCs have this special exemption from the Investment Advisors Act, which is one of the laws that governs fund managers. And so basically, if you fit within this VC manager box, you don't have to do as much stuff as like a private equity fund or a hedge fund. And specifically, you have to, each fund that you manage has to have at least 80% what they're called qualifying assets. And that means, primary issuances of shares in an operating business. That was a tough sentence, but it's like, you're doing a Series A investment, you're doing a seed investment. What doesn't count are investment in other people's funds or SPVs or secondaries. So if I bought shares of SpaceX and I sell them to you, that doesn't work. And so many times we've had clients come to us who thought they were VC managers, but they weren't. And the most common way
they broke those rules.
The most common way is they'll do an SPV of secondaries. And it's like, well, you screwed that one up because, and then it's like, well, what do you do? And, one thing that we've seen is people basically just sell, like they wind that SPV down because they need the VC exemption back. So they can't manage these secondaries things, or they like switch managers to somebody else. There's all sorts of stuff.
That makes sense. Okay, here's another area where I suspect you might think that people mess up, and I'm curious to get your take on it. Many people that are looking to start their first fund end up going with these, what you might call fund in a box providers, AngelList, Sydecar, Carta. I'll name them so you don't have to. So you don't have to pick on anyone in particular. What is your take on these platforms? Why should people, what should people think about when they're deciding whether or not to go with a provider like that versus, coming to you guys?
Well, I am obviously biased and of course almost unreliable when I answer a question like this because I'm interested. But I mean, my real opinion is that those providers are very, very good for certain situations. And I often refer people to those specific services. So they're not bad things by any stretch of the imagination. You just need to be careful to make sure that you're using them correctly and they will serve your specific goals. So what do I mean? That's just a bunch of words. If you are planning on raising a lot of capital from larger investors, more sophisticated investors, many times they will not want to invest in funds or SPVs on those platforms. And that's not always the case. But in many cases, those platforms optimize for efficiency, obviously. And so like you optimize for efficiency, like, it's kind of like we learned this in the pandemic. Efficiency and robustness are like two sides of a continuum. And so if you're super far on the efficiency curve, or the side on the efficiency side, it's hard to poke at the documents and make certain types of changes without it kind of breaking the system. And so what you might find if you're a big LP, like I've repped large LPs, and they were investing in a fund on a platform, and we're like, we need to change these things, and they're just like, can't be done, and it kind of annoyed the client. They're like, well, all right, what do you do about this? So if you're raising more money, like I might not use those platforms depending on the situation. The other piece is what I mentioned earlier, like you have to make sure that you're using it for something that makes sense. Today, again, we talked to a prospect who, like, it's a non-US situation where there's a lot of non-US investors, and they used a fund in the box to set up a fund that's an LLC, a series LLC, which is actually what most of the fund in the boxes are. They're series LLCs. And in many cases, sophisticated non-US investors will not invest in entities in LLCs because it's a whole tax reason, but basically they won't do it. And so now you like have this mismatch where it's like there were other things where like they actually wanted an open-ended style fund, and they got a closed end, and they already did it too. They have documents. They set up a closed end series LLC structure when they need an open-ended limited partnerships structure. So it's just like what you have is not what you want. So I mean, for me, like for small SPVs especially, I would just say like, use a platform. There are like, platform risks. I think a lot of the current platforms, I don't know firsthand, so I can't speak to it. I think a lot of them have tried to mitigate this risk. But like, have you ever heard of Assure? Do you know what Assure is?
Yeah, the SPV platform they basically just disappeared.
Yeah, exactly. So there's like, I can't remember, maybe it was 2022. And so then like I was at DLA at the time, and there was just this influx of people that were like, well, the fund in a box provider blew up. What do I do? Like, what do I do now? And how difficult that cleanup was depended on the specific structure of how it was set up. I will say, like, a lot of them, the services, I know AngelList specifically has a couple of options for how you set things up. And one is called, and I might not, the exact name.
The sub-advisor thing.
Yeah, there's like an AngelList advised version or a self-advised version. I'm not sure if those are exactly the right words, but the question is like, is AngelList your the funds, like technically the funds like management company, or is it your own management company? I would generally suggest setting up your own management company. Yeah. So then if things fall apart, at least like the structure is still there, and you don't have to like, what we did with Assure is like, they were all like Assure managed. And then we had to like get all these consents from all these Assure people, and it was kind of a mess.
Yeah, it makes sense. And that's definitely a risk. It does kind of feel like there's room for some enterprising, tech-forward fund formation law firms that build a service that is kind of halfway in between like AngelList and, an old stodgy BigLaw fund formation practice.
That sounds like a really good idea.
Kind of like it has all the nice, the niceties of a nice modern web interface, and you can make things very easily get stood up, but you also have real professional legal minds behind it and the ability to be flexible when necessary.
Yeah.
So,
we're as you know, we're building our own software right now.
That's right.
And so that is part of the roadmap for sure.
I love it. Okay, I have like two more questions. One technical question. This is my selfish getting free legal advice moment here. Okay,
Sounds
this
good.
takes us back. This takes us back to 506C.
Yeah.
So you can raise an SPV under 506c, correct?
Yep.
My understanding.
Yeah.
So let's say that someone sets up an SPV under 506c and they are investing in the Series A of some startup. And they go out on Twitter and they start yapping about how people can invest in their SPV to invest in the Series A of this hot startup.
Yeah.
Now, in an indirect way, they are publicly soliciting for this company's Series A, which prior to this person with the 506c SPV opening their mouth was, not being publicly solicited, and probably for legal reason.
Yeah.
Is someone going to get in trouble there? And the reason I ask this, by the way, this isn't hypothetical. I see this all the time.
Yeah.
Like, and it seems like it's kind of a weird, weaselly way where companies can start getting publicity for their fundraisers, even though they're probably not supposed to be publicly fundraising.
Yeah. I mean, whether or not any particular person is going to get in trouble, I don't know. It's kind of like a new sort of problem that's arisen.
Yeah.
I will say that we do have clients in positions like that. Like we have, for example, it's several clients actually who have funds that invest in search funds. So it's kind of a similar thing. And the funds themselves are 506c, but then like they might do a co-invest vehicle or something for like the underlying search fund, which is 506b. And ultimately, like what we did is we told our clients we'd really prefer it if the underlying were 506c.
Yeah.
And so
like it should
like that was our position. And whether or not the underlying business, we're lawyers. So we're like, this is what we recommend. You should tell this to the underlying company. And then, sometimes the underlying lawyers say, okay. And most of the time they say, what's 506c? We're not going to do it.
Right.
And so
That's
maybe
funny.
not most of the time. That has happened though. We're trying to protect our own clients as much as we can, which is why in that specific situation, we try to get everybody to do 506c.
Makes sense. Sounds like the general answer here is do 506c when in doubt.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one quick sub thing on that is one thing sometimes people try to do is they'll like raise like an SPV with like 506c and like a fund at the same time. Like they do one 506b, one 506c. I would not do that either. Because then it's like, well, you got the investor from this one, and then like, oh, by the way, we also have this fund. It's like I would say that's a no as well.
Not in line with the spirit of the law.
No.
So, in the last few minutes that we have, I know we're a little bit over time. Tell us about the book.
Yeah, the book is How You Should Raise an Investment Fund. It's kind of 101, 202 stuff. There is some complicated stuff in there for sure, but a lot of it's kind of the basics, walking you through how do you get started, what are the general legal guidelines, practical stuff about what you need in your documents. This is applicable to venture capital, real estate, private equity. It doesn't really matter what type of fund, right? All types of funds. That's right. I found I learned by reading books and I at least didn't find any books that were kind of accessible that talked about fund formation. So
this is the book you wish you had.
This is the book I wish I had. That's right. I'm the first person ever to say that. Really original marketing phrase.
Hey, it works. Sometimes you got to play the hits. Yeah. And when is the book coming out?
July 15th.
And where will people be able to purchase the book?
The internet, Amazon.com, the world's bookstore, or whatever they call themselves.
And title is, so go to Amazon and look up Fundamentals.
Fundamentals, your friendly guide to investment funds and syndications. Here's a marketing thing.
Tell me.
If you're on our newsletter, which is available at fundamentals.law, then we're going to send out a link where you can buy it for 99 cents on the first week. So
I love it.
That's a good price. Hopefully it's worth 99
and
cents.
I would say good to sign up for the newsletter anyway. I enjoy the newsletter and I get a lot out of it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know we're kind of at the end of our time, but was there anything that you wanted to talk about or say that we didn't get a chance to, or any closing thoughts for the listeners?
No, that's it, man.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, and what's the website for people if they want to join, if they want to learn more about the firm and are potentially interested in, raising their own fund and need formation services?
Yeah, the firm's website is til.law.
til.law. Nice, short and sweet. I love it.
Yeah, well, we changed it. It's nice to have a short
the
domain
Investments
name.
Lawyers was a bit.
Yeah. I didn't like typing it. I thought if I don't like typing it, nobody likes typing that.
And it's easy to forget. Is it the Investment Lawyers or the Investments Lawyers? So plenty.
I know a secret. We're changing the firm's name like in the next month.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We're gonna call it TIL Partners instead.
Really?
Yeah, because we're branching out. We're gonna grow the firm a bunch, and so we might do stuff that is not specifically investments, but we're gonna keep the same logo. So hopefully there's some continuity.
Sense. Yeah. All right. Well, Michael, this has been a great conversation. Learned a lot, and hopefully other people learned too. Thank you so much for being a great partner in the fund that I run, and hopefully we will be your clients for many years to come and give you guys lots and lots of money.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate you.
All right.